So we're looking at a sales order listing, and to generate a sales order within KimCo, there's a couple different ways that you can do that. You can manually come in here and add a sales order. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring me to the sales order header page. And on this page, the first thing you'd want to do is select a customer and some other required fields like the date that the order was created will be populating in automatically. It can also populate a scheduled delivery date based on your company's policy lead time. Some other fields to track on the sales order header as your jobs are in process and are being worked on. You'll be able to track the running totals of your actual costs, your gross profit amount, and your gross margins. And there are also some other fields here like terms and currency, discounts, etc., that you can adjust based on your given project. But I'm not going to save this one. I'm actually going to take a step back. This was the manual way of creating a sales order. But if I go into a quote, which if we've gone through the sales process, we have a quote sent out to the customer. We've got some prices here, and we want to generate the lines based on this quote. I'm just really quickly going to put in some dollar values here and hit convert to sales order. And what that's going to do, the first page that's going to pop up is going to ask if I have a customer PO number. That's not required, but a lot of companies have a customer PO that always comes in with a request for quote. So if you want to track that, you'd be able to here. And then the next thing that it's going to show me is a pop-up to select the quote lines for the sales order. So if I don't want to bring one over for a sales order because the customer decided they don't want that anymore and they only want to go forward with one job, then I can make that selection here. Otherwise, if we won the quote and the customer liked it, we would go ahead and hit select here. And that is going to generate our sales order header automatically, as well as the two sales lines that are being generated from the quote lines. So now I'm back on the sales order header page. I've got two sales lines. And if we go into one of these sales lines, we see the unit price came over, if we would have had any discounting information, if we would have had, looks like we did have an estimate, a source estimate attached to that quote. So that pulls over as well, along with the commissionable information that you have either based on your salespeople or based on customer groups, etc. Also on this sales line, while we're here, you have some basic required fields as well that will pull over from a quote. If you're doing manually, these would be things that you need to select as far as a sales group. Material class, we are using finished goods because this is something that we are selling, and then a tax category. If this is a part that you're selling that is a stocked part, we would have the stocking set as stocked so that we would be able to track the on-hand values of the current inventory that you have on hand with this given part. If it is a custom part, like a custom widget or sign, something that is not stocked, we would want to keep that as the stocking non-stocked. Along these other sub-tabs, we have some delivery address information if you need to customize a one-time ship to. If we are attaching multiple sales orders to a higher level project, we would be able to link it here. The customer information, fairly straightforward, just linking you back to that customer. This activities sub-tab has quite a bit of valuable information. So on this sales line, if we ran this supply and demand and this was for a stocked part, we would see the manufacturer supply and the work order demand basically calculating out our running balance. When we get to creating our jobs and work orders, we would also see those attached here, as well as RMA lines, NCR lines, shipment lines, and then any AR invoice or progress billing information all being tied at this sales line, but also at the sales header. The last tab here, other than our comments and attachments features, is the quoted costs. So again, if we had generated a quote, when we do have a quoted information, that would populate on this sub tab. Down at the bottom of the sales line, we've got our different deliveries, line additional charges, and production method bill of materials. So within any sales line, if you are selling something with a quantity of more than one, you can break that out into multiple deliveries and schedule them out differently, and or track them differently as far as when that is going to be something that is manufactured, fabricated, installed, essentially anything that your business is going to be working on. You can break it out into different deliveries, additional charges, or our flat rate extra charges for things like freight or permitting would be some examples of extra additional charges. And then production method, bill of materials. You see we have the child parts that all go into this production method of a monument sign without install is the part type that we are currently using for this example. If I go back to the sales order header, you see at the header level, we also have deliveries listed here, as well as additional charges for the entire order instead of broken out into each lines. Again, the sub tabs right here represent our comments feature. So if I put in and tag myself for an example, and I hit save, I can notify any project manager, salesperson, production shop floor manager to this exact sales order. It will open in a new tab and bring me right to that sales order so that we can further communicate and collaborate on the sales order header. The attachments as well, here I can upload any files that I would like to, images, notes, videos, anything that you would need to store as far as your attachments and outside documents would require. The last tab here is called our change log. And unlike these two, which are found in almost everywhere of the software, you can comment or add attachments to, the change log is not found everywhere, but mostly on the sales order, the opportunity, the work order, and that gives you an audit list of every change that has been made to this sales order header. So if we go in and adjust any pricing information, any discount information, any margins, you will see that reflected through the change log. Also on this header, we have some basic documents that we can generate, like this print sales order. We usually call it a sales order acknowledgement, but some others have different terminology for this use and this function within KimCo. So if I run this report, you would be able to see in just a second that it's going to generate a document in the background, and it gives me the notification up here in my top right screen. And if I select the preview, it'll open in a new tab in my browser, our basic out-the-box view of a sales order acknowledgement form. So again, it shows our deliveries, it shows our lines. If we had broken those deliveries out, this document would reflect that, and it shows our total. Again, very basic information in here. These forms are all very highly customizable. So if you want to add more information, terms and conditions, any sort of liable information that you need to have on your company's documents, we can add that. So I've created my sales order header with my two lines, and the next step would be to actually create the production jobs or the work orders. So I'm going to hit that button, and that will, again, in the background, create the work orders and the jobs based off of the selected production method that is showing on your sales line. So since in this example, we had a quote that had estimates attached, this is automatically going to create the jobs and work orders and pull in the production method information, which I can show you on the job right here. So now this has just created a job and a work order. We don't need to get into that right now. This is more on the sales order side. But if we wanted to release this to the shop floor, schedule it out, etc., this was all something that we don't have to automatically do, bringing in the operations and the materials because we had estimated that out. Had we not estimated that out, when we hit the create production method, it would have allowed us to bring one in from either an engineered production method part, so a manufactured part, or some people just say their templates. You could also pull it in from a previous estimate or from a previous production job and or work order that itself would be the most accurate. So the system created 2 new work orders based on my estimates that had already been quoted out. So if I click into one of these production jobs, I will see my job, my work order, and my operations and materials all listed out in this left tree view. If I actually click into the work order itself, I'd also be able to see and adjust these operations and materials here. But again, we don't need to get too far into the work order itself. This is more on the sales orders, so we can cancel out of this. But had we not had an estimate attached to the sales line, we could have pulled in a production method or a template, as it were, from a previous job, from a previous estimate, or from an engineered manufactured part that would have your production method information on it. So what I mean by that is if I go back to the sales line, you will see that under this method field group, we have the method source selected as estimate, and it automatically pulled in that source estimate, which was linked at the opportunity line, at the quote, and now here at the sales order level. Going back to the sales order header, now that we have jobs and work orders created, if we wanted to schedule those out or just immediately release those to the production team, they could start accumulating actual costs, actually issuing materials, logging labor, bringing in outside costs from purchasing, etc. Once we did that, we would be able to see that reflected again in the total actual costs, which would also calculate out our gross profit and our gross margin percent. We have the rolled up totals here, but if we have multiple sales lines and we want to see more detailed costing information, one of the buttons up here is the job cost analysis. And when we run this, you may notice that it's our detailed job cost analysis that you can run on any given job. So if I go back to this job, you see this cost analysis button here. But doing so at the sales order header level means that we can pull in both jobs or multiple in other cases and run it on the same report. So if I hit run report here, it's going to generate a document again for me, and it will notify me when it's done, saying that we've brought in that information and generated that report. So if I hit preview here, you will now see 5 pages, and the first half will be for this job 001, and the second half will be for the job 002. So within any given job cost analysis document, it breaks out all of your potential costs. Again, these are the operations that we had listed from that source method. So we have estimated versus actual hours, total labor hours, estimated versus actual costs, as well as estimated versus actual burden costs. And within these reports, again, whenever you run them, it will give you real-time visibility into what has been applied as far as job costing to those work orders. So right now, since we don't have any labor in, we don't have any materials being issued. We don't see any actual costs. Again, down below here, we get to the materials side and the similar format where we have the estimated versus actual cost and the estimated versus actual quantities. And one other unique thing about this report is we can see all of the time card entries as they're coming in. If your company utilizes the shop floor app, you will be able to see in the middle of a day any given employee that's been working on this or is in the process of working on this job. You'd be able to see those time card entries and then any outside information. So you see here we've got one outside operation here with an estimated cost. Now, we haven't gone and generated a purchase order. We haven't received a purchase order, so we don't see any actual costs. But when we do, that will reflect on the job cost report as well. And then lastly, at the bottom, we have our total work order costs and our total job costs. For companies that have only one work order to the job, these will be the same. But for many companies who have multiple work orders to the same job, these will be different. And then we get into the second one. Again, the same information, operational labor information and material information, as well as the grand totals. So I'm coming back from that job cost report that we just ran, 3, 2, 1. So coming back to the sales order header, if we want to, we can add an additional charge at any time. I could come in here. I could pull in an additional charge that we have set up in the system and bring in a price. And we could save that if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is show how the sales orders and the subsequent work orders and jobs actually drive our purchasing module. So within this sales order, if we go to the first job for this first sales line, you'll see that we have this operation OS grind. It's an outside service grind. And what I'm going to do is we're going to use this to automatically generate a purchase order so that we can then apply those costs directly to the job and subsequent sales order. So if I go into the purchasing module, the first thing that any given purchasing department would want to do is run this generate supply requests report. And this cutoff date, if you want to go out to the end of the month and track what your work order material requirements are, it basically will let you go out as far as you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and schedule this out for the next 3 months and hit generate. Again, you can filter out more based on buyer, planner, the job, the specific job, the operation type, or the material class. But I'm just going to hit generate across the board for now. What that is going to do is run a background job. It'll give me a notification saying that that has been generated. And then what we'll want to do is, instead of manually adding a purchase order, we could run this purchase new supply requests report. So we generated this report and now it's bringing it into a list view for us to select. But essentially what we're looking at is all of our potential purchase items and services across the entire company. So if I want to filter further on the outside operations, I can actually just bring in the job number 18542.001 and hit search, and it will actually filter what is needed to purchase based on that work order. Again, we only have one operation that is flagged as outside. So you see here we have that pulling in with the price as well as the part and vendor information here too. I'm not going to do this the automatic way. I'm actually going to go back and manually create a purchase order now. But I wanted to show how this purchase new supply requests can help automate and track your purchasing demand based on your open sales orders and work orders. So if I go to my purchasing workbench again, we have the generate supply request, the purchase new supply requests, but we also just have this add purchase order feature here. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring me to my purchase order header page. And from here, the first thing I would want to do is pull in the vendor. And we could change the date if we need to. Otherwise, today's date works just fine. And we would hit save. From there, once you get really good at it, you can come in here and actually add lines in the header view. But we're just going to go ahead and add line using this button that will bring us to an actual line creation page. On this purchase line, you see we've got some subtabs, again, planning, activity, comments, attachments. We've got some related lists, purchase deliveries. Again, if something that you're purchasing, a purchase line of a quantity more than one, you can always break that out into different deliveries and schedule them or receive them to different locations based on however you want to do that. For this example, we're just going to go through it with one line, and we're going to flag it as line type outside service. And we are going to actually pull in the operation right off the bat. So if I look up 18542.001.woo.40-OS grind, that's the outside operation that we've been using for this example. And it's actually going to automatically pull in the unit price that was estimated, as well as any other instructions or descriptions that we had for this purchased operation. So now I'm going to hit save. And that would be the basics of setting up a purchase order. The last thing that I would need to do is to generate the report, this purchase order document, just like our quote, our sales order acknowledgement, any report layouts within the system, you will have full access to customize yourself. But this is our out-the-box purchase order document. And once we generated that and sent it out, we would flag this and as a place order is what we would hit. Now this purchase order has a PO status change as it is now placed. So it will not be something that we have to come back to unless it is time to be received. If we go back to this work order, why the hell? Never mind. Okay. Now this PO status has been placed, so we can go back and actually receive it so that we can see those costs reflect on our sales order. So I'm going to the receiving workbench now, and our very first link is receive PO. We're going to hit that link, and you'll always have a pack slip number for any of your purchase orders. And then we can actually just pull in that purchase order 18553. What? Oh, 4. Sorry. This was the one we were doing earlier.
Oh, okay.
So let me just start a little bit back here. So I went to my receiving workbench, and the very first link we have in the top left is to receive PO. And it will ask you for a pack slip number, and then ask you to select the purchase order that you want to receive. And I'm going to hit continue. And now here's where you would be allowed to receive based on your different purchase lines or your different purchase deliveries, depending on how you want to break those out. We just have one line and one delivery, so I'm going to check this box to select it, and we are going to hit select. What that is going to do is generate a purchase receipt for us with our purchase receipt lines. And if we came into the purchase receipt line, you would see all of the information as far as where we are receiving this to. So if we had a part that we were receiving to a specific inventory location, that would be listed here as well. But we're actually receiving it directly to a job or to work in process or WIP. And so that information is all linked at the bottom here. If that all looks good, we would go back to our receipt header and hit receive items. And now, once that has been received and processed, we should be able to go back to our sales order and see some applied actual costs. So now our total actual costs are reflecting that $525 from the purchase order. And if we ran that job cost analysis, which I'll run one more time for you, the document will now reflect not only the costs, but reference the actual purchase order information as well. As you see down here in the outside purchase delivery section, we've got the purchase order line, the delivery date, vendor, and which exact operation we received it to, along with those costs, the actual costs. From here, there's a lot more to get into on the work orders, but the next stage would be to create an AR invoice.